Hello, this is John Mann. It's now time for us to analyze the information that you have received. So, if you were the person who sent out the information, you're the assessee, you're the one being assessed, then I'm going to walk you through some of the things that you should be doing as you get this information back. And I hope that it assists. First of all, you have just received your packet back with the 360 information. Now, when you get that information back, it's going to be 7 to 12 to 14 pages of information that you're receiving from those people that you selected and that they turned in their information from your open-ended questions. And the first thing that you want to do is you want to just sit down and you just want to read it. And I'm going to tell you the reason. Because those first 4 or 5 questions, whichever one your district has about your evaluation and or the state standards, according to where you're at, those questions, you're going to read information about them and about your strengths and about things you're doing well. And it is really wonderful. It is really wonderful. And so you sit back, you enjoy that, you read it, and just read through it. That's all you want to do the first time. Then you get to the next question. The next question is on area of needs improvement. And you know what? We have found that's good as well. And sometimes that then connects. And so you read that section. And then the last section, you've saved the last section, which are the stories about you and your impact through your leadership on your organization and on the people around you. And then sit and read those stories that they have shared. And we've had people tell them that they didn't get out without tissues. And so hopefully you will enjoy and relish in some of those stories that they share about you. Now, it should be understood that some of your stories may not tie directly to the state standards or the evaluation criteria, because when we do great things for others, they don't always fit in boxes. And that's what you should remember. And so then enjoy that. So that's the first thing you do after you receive it. You sit back and you take the time and you just read through it. And you don't do anything else at that time. Okay, now, step 2. Now we're ready for the personal analysis section. Now it's time to dig deeper and into the summary sheets that you have. And what you're going to do is you're going to look for patterns. And you're going to look for areas within each one of the question areas. And so if your second question was about improvement of instruction, and the areas that they were providing you feedback on were the vision for instruction in your district, how do you support and retain teachers, and awareness of instructional practices, and other areas such as those that was your area, then you're going to be sitting there and you're going to take a highlighter and you're going to take some notes and you're going to dig into each one of these stories, each one of these areas that they have provided you feedback. And so then you're going to look at them and you're going to start highlighting. So I've done one here, and you'll be looking at some of the highlights that I have made. But on it says, in this area, I've been struck by the in-depth knowledge that my assistant principal had on classroom instruction. Not only with the classroom instruction, but school-wide practices as well. He is acutely aware not only of curriculum, but of classroom procedures, environments, and other areas that are there to help me. Now, though that was what I highlighted. There was much more written there, but that was the piece that I highlighted from there. The next one, and there was much more there, but I highlighted his ability to support and retain teachers. I applaud. The processes that we are working on are based upon what he observes in walkthroughs and is shared with the staff at best practices. Leadership opportunities are there then offered to those teachers. And so that's another area where there's a great strength of his in this one area of supporting the teachers, understanding instructional practices, retaining teachers, having a vision for instruction, all of those things. Another thing that was written about this person in this section was he has a vision for our staff about research-based practices and those that close the gap and increase student achievement. This is done through a very clear and manageable way that he supports all those that he works with. And so those are really important pieces. And obviously there are more. And so some of the ones that you have up and provided may be different, a little different than the ones I shared, but that's what you're going to do. You're going to sit there with a highlighter and you're going to take your time, but you're going to dig into what is the strength in this area of supporting curriculum and or supporting teachers that they're identifying for me. Now, could someone give you some information that really doesn't hit that? Of course. And so you might have an area that you don't highlight anything. That's fine. Now then, after you've highlighted those and you've taken some notes about that area, now you're starting to look for patterns. You've highlighted, and now you're starting to look for patterns among what you've highlighted and the notes you've taken. And you're going to start to look at what others said versus what you put, and see if there's any correlation between what you thought about your strengths in this area and what they saw as your strengths. One of the exciting pieces is going to be sometimes they know more about strengths of yours than you even thought about, and you say, wait, I am good at that. I didn't even think about that. And that's pretty exciting. It's also exciting to see and compare to say, okay, what does my supervisor think of me in this area? So that's an important piece to do as well. And you're going to do so, and you're going to go through each one of the areas, highlighting, taking notes, and then kind of putting down what you believe are the biggest strengths that they've identified and that you agree with in these areas. Okay? Now, after you've done that, it's time for you to work with the one area that's where your needs improvement. So you do the same thing there. You go through and you highlight, you look for patterns, you look for consistency, you look for areas that they've identified. And it's amazing that all of a sudden a pattern will come up and you'll say, okay, you know what? That's a good area for me to have a goal on in regard to my own development. Now, what do I do next? Well, the thing that you do next is you start to look at development of personal goals. And you may not be developing your personal goals without a mentor or supervisor participating with you, but what you're wanting to do is you're wanting to do the piece that I'm talking about. You're wanting to go through and do a lot of work beforehand, before you meet with your supervisor or your mentor. And here's the reason. The reason is it takes a while to dig through a 7 to 14 page document to dig out the gems that are in there. So this is not simple or quick work. You have to dig into it. Now the good part is you're probably going to be using this information for your goals for the next 1 to 3 to 4 years. So you may be working off of these goals for the next X amount of time. And so that's really good and that's important. So when you're doing it, it's not wasted work at all. So you want to do a lot before you ever sit down with your mentor or your coach and or your supervisor, because you want to maximize the time that you have with them. And so then you want to be able to show them the patterns that you've found, the areas that you believe that it highlights, and then you could even have 4 or 5 different suggestions of goals based upon mainly strength areas that you're wanting to expand, and or and one area from your area of development. So ultimately, after you meet with your supervisor, your mentor, your coach, you should end up honing in on and developing and deciding upon 2 to 3 areas from your strengths and 1 goal from an area of needs development. So ultimately, you should end up with either 3 total goals or 4 total goals that you're working to accomplish in this next year or over a time period. And, you know, one of the things that's so interesting is this is important work, but also it allows you to grow at a much faster rate because you're working in areas that you already have some level of strength and or competence. And so the research is just amazing out there about what that does for us. Now, as I go forward, some of the frequently asked questions. Why do I, the assessee, look through everything first? Well, I think I've answered that. But you look through it first because it takes too long if you're doing it with your coach. You want to do some of that preliminary work for them and by yourself, or you could do it with a partner, of course. If two of you are going through, you could sit together and you could do it if you wanted. But most of the time you're going to do it individually, and you're going to do it because you're going to put in this time to make your meeting with them more timely and more valuable. Why do I focus on the strengths? Well, you focus on the strengths because we've been focusing only on our areas of need for so long, and we've not been growing and achieving at the levels that we would hope. So now we're trying to become more balanced. And to become more balanced, we're going to work on a majority of our work on areas that we have some ability, some strength. What happens is people want to work on those areas much more than they do on things that they know little about and have little knowledge, and everything is new in that area. Plus, the research is pretty clear that you just don't get the amount of growth that you would hope if you don't include some works on things that you have some background in and some strengths in and those kinds of things. Now, it doesn't mean, as we've said over and over, that you're not having a goal in a needs improvement area. You are. But you're choosing now one of those goals, not 5 of them, not 4 of them. You're choosing one, the most important one that will help you to grow as a leader. And ultimately, those will have to be chosen with your mentor, your coach, or your supervisor, and they will sit with you and make sure that they agree that those are good areas as well. What's another one of my frequently asked questions? I like this process. It does not seem like the process should be something that I enjoy. You know, most of the time, us working on our goals and personal development, we don't always like it. But you know what? You should like this because you're heavily involved, and it's also based upon things that you're finding out are strengths, but others are saying they're strengths of yours as well. You will enjoy this process. It does take some time in this section. So when you're doing your analysis, don't try to shortchange it. Don't try to go too quickly before you meet with your mentor, your coach, or your supervisor. It is absolutely fine, and we would welcome all mentors or coaches or supervisors to watch this section especially as they prepare to assist you in getting your goals ready for this coming year or 2 to 3 years time period that you might be using this set of goals as you work on your own professional development improvement. Well, it's been a pleasure. I hope this has helped, and I look forward to working with you all again in the future.